You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact. Hello and welcome to Business Wealth Impact. Today we have Scott Donnell as our guest. He's the best-selling author of Value Creation Kid, The Healthy Struggles Your Children Need to Succeed, with over 6 million families served. Scott is the leading voice in helping parents teach their kids good money skills, and he is the founder of Dinner Table. Welcome, Scott.
Good to be here. I can't wait. This is going to be a great conversation.
Exactly, because we took a bit to get a good time, and I'm thrilled that you're here. So why don't you tell us, first of all, what is Dinner Table and what is your mission with that?
Yeah, so Dinner Table, we want it to be the world's best parenting community. And kind of how this started was, for the last 15 years, I've had many, many companies helping kids and families. So we started what became the largest school fundraising franchise in America. It was called Apex. I started it to help my wife, Amy. She was a first grade teacher. She spent her whole paycheck on her students. And I was like, what are you doing? You don't make any money. What is going on here? So I started this fun run company teaching leadership and character traits and fitness to kids. They'd raise money for their school. And it just exploded all across America. And we've raised almost $1 billion now for schools, teaching millions of kids. And right away, back in 2011, I started to see in the school system, we have 10,000 schools we've served, and we started to see a big hole. So, hey, why aren't these kids, learning how to budget or practical skills, or learn about taxes, or learn how to create value, right, in the world? Critical thinking, learning how to learn all those things that are really going to help you when you get into the real world, right? And so that's why we started a bunch of our other companies, which now have led into Dinner Table. The point is, hey, how do we fill this hole in the education system where kids can actually learn to create practical value everywhere they go and be successful in the real world? Okay, so it evolved. So we started doing these children's business fairs all over the world. Now there's like 3,300 of them. Then we launched My First Sale, which is .com, which helps kids launch online businesses. And all of that evolved now into Dinner Table. We created an app that teaches kids how to do gigs around the house and cover their own expenses and create value everywhere they go. And so now the Dinner Table program, it's a coaching program for families. They use the app. They get their kids going on how to learn the money skills, the practical skills to succeed. And we call it the Value Creation Journey, that's the book we wrote, Value Creation Kid. And it was basically what we've learned from all these millions of families. And how do you do it right? How do you get your kids to succeed and be unshakable, right? Like anti-fragile, ready to create value everywhere they go, intrinsically motivated to do it. And I think that's really what parents are striving for with their children. You have to give them good roots in the family, good values, but you also have to give them wings. Right? Wings to soar in the real world. And so that's really what Dinner Table exists to do. It's a journey you go on as parents with your kids. And we coach you every month. We give you tools, strategies in the home, and we give you the system to set up to help your kids succeed.
Now, I'm going to be really transparent. I love this so much that when I heard you speak, well, almost a year ago now, maybe, I immediately invested in this company. And I don't invest in everything, but I'm so all in helping families with finance. And also I homeschooled my kids for a while, and the critical thinking was important. So I'm just so all in your message. And I'm so proud of you helping 6 million children. I mean, I just love what you've done. So why don't we go into exactly how the app works and pricing even? You can say pricing. How do people get involved?
Well, the app, we actually made the app free. It's international now. You can basically download the app and go. And then for, I think, $30 a month, you start to you go through the coaching, the value creation journey with your family. And so the premise here is this. So I've been studying the best families in the world now for over a decade. meeting with them, sitting with them. How did you raise kids and grandkids and great grandkids to blow by you in all the ways that matter,
Mm,
right? Values and mindsets and skill sets and relationship depth and financial competency. And they started to all tell us the same strategies, that they all did the same stuff,
mm. And what was that?
and almost nobody else does it. And so one of the first strategies that they taught me was, we teach our children to create value in the world first, not money.
Mm,
See, money is a store of value.
mhm,
It's not good, it's not bad. If you think it's all good and it's everything, you're going to have a keeping up with the Joneses mindset.
mhm,
It's going to be identity and status and achievement. You're going to see people differently. It's a bad thing.
mhm,
But if you see money as evil,
mm,
that's not true either. That's
mhm.
not what the Bible says. The Bible says it's the love of money
Right.
that's the root of
I'm
evil.
with you on that.
Money itself, if you just think money's bad, it's a poverty mindset,
Right. How could it
right?
be bad when it's what feeds us and clothes us and keeps us safe and warm and in a house? How could that
That's
possibly be
right.
bad, right?
Right. So the key is to put money in its proper place,
Mm,
right? To give it a job, to be in charge of it, or else it will be in charge of you. And so a lot of what we do is teaching kids to create value, because again, money is a store of value, but it's
mhm,
only one kind of value,
mhm,
right? There's other types of value. There's three types of value, actually. So I'll go through those real quick, and then you can kind of start to see what we train. So the first type of value is material value, right? Material value is problems that you solve. Okay, it's doing gigs around the house,
mhm,
seeing things that have to be done and solving them,
mm,
helping people in the community, in the neighborhood, doing gigs for them to help them out.
mhm,
Most people who have a business or work inside of a business, they're creating material value
mhm.
and serving the wants and needs of their customers, right?
Right.
But for some reason, we've lost this in the education system. I mean, most 15-year-olds can quote the quadratic formula,
Mhm.
right? They can just rattle off the quadratic formula. I've never used the quadratic formula in my entire life since learning it when I was 14, right?
Neither have I.
So, but the point is, okay, well then why don't we actually learn how to create value
Mhm,
by solving problems in the real world?
mm,
That's what we should be teaching our children.
mm,
Okay? So the first type of value is material value that you can create, and you can create it from nothing.
mm,
That's the beauty of this. We teach the economy, like, hey, don't worry about what you hear on the news.
mhm,
Stop being scared about whatever they say on the TV, or all these scary things you might hear on social media, or about the markets.
mhm,
The economy is very simple. It's just finding problems and solving them
mm,
for a profit.
mhm.
That's what it is.
Yes.
It's finding the wants that other people have and the needs they have, the things they need to get, and getting it to them.
Mhm.
And you can do that as a kid. You can do that at a very young age, and you learn to master that, and that's how you create material value.
Mm,
And so kids, that we have tens of thousands of kids now, they are like hunting for ways to create value all around them.
right,
And money is usually the reward for creating material value.
right.
But that's just the first one. The second type of value is it's emotional value. So this is how you become a great sibling or friend or classmate or teammate. It's emotional value created.
Mm,
So being how you think, right? Your mindset, how you feel, helping others think and feel better,
mm,
encouraging somebody, being kind, being a great sibling. The leader, the captain of every team is the one that creates the most emotional value.
mm,
The leader in every situation is the one that's caring for everybody around them. And so that's a whole nother type of value that can be created again from nothing.
mm.
And I think this idea of, hey, you can create value from nothing, even as a child, it gives them unbelievable confidence, like
Right,
inner confidence.
right.
And and that's the key, is to get kids to understand, hey, this is a superpower.
Mm,
If you can learn to be a value creator, hunting for ways to create value all around you all the time,
mhm,
it will change your life.
mm,
Okay. So that's the second type of value. So we have material value, emotional value, and then the last one is spiritual value.
mhm,
And different people can define spiritual value differently, but I look at it as how you live your life and love others,
mhm.
and really connect them to something above themselves, to
Right,
God,
right,
right? Like I love God.
right.
I'm a Christian.
Me too. We have that in
I
common.
don't pull any punches. Like
Mhm.
Jesus is the greatest
Mhm.
form of spiritual value ever created or ever given
Absolutely.
to the world, right? He
Absolutely.
wasn't created. He's God.
Yes.
So, but think of it this way, like it's not material value, it's not emotional value. It's it's helping people get above themselves to a greater cause.
Right.
Okay? So, here's a good example. When we said we were going to put a man on the moon in the 60s and bring him home safely by the end of the decade, it brought the entire country to a higher mission.
Mhm.
It was like the last time we were all so connected.
Mm.
Immense spiritual value was created. Like you look at the revivals, all these ways that people love each other and serve each other and they're generous. This creates spiritual value.
Mm.
Deeper connectedness, more connection to God. It's another bucket altogether.
Right.
And I think that it's probably one of the most lacking out there. But kids need to understand, again, you can create this from nothing,
Right. It doesn't take
right?
anything to pray or help your neighbor. It takes
That's right.
nothing. Takes a thought.
Or love your younger brother,
Right.
right? Or give them help, share with them,
Right. Yes.
or pray for them, or really learn to love God and serve him
Mhm.
and listen for how he wants you to love other people.
Absolutely.
And so this it's a whole nother bucket altogether. And so that's the three types of value that these families, the
Mhm.
best in the world, they were
Right.
like, yeah, we just trained on that.
Wow. Okay.
And so that's really what became the heart of Dinner Table. It's like, let's get families to go on this value creation journey
Mm.
to master these three types of value. And then we have all these strategies. And so the app, for instance, it's an app you can just download on the App Store. Just
Mhm.
go to Dinner Table app,
Mhm.
and it helps you create. It's the material value and emotional value buckets.
Right.
So it helps kids learn skills that are very practical, very helpful to other people, and they get a financial return
Mm.
for it. And so they're doing gigs all over the house, in the
Mhm.
community. It's this printout for the fridge that mom and dad can set up. It's something that we call it the family economy system.
Mhm.
And it's another one of these strategies that all the best families used. So
Mm.
I can walk you through that if you want. The 3
Oh,
E's.
I'd love to. And also, you said mom and dad. Well, let's not forget there are some people that have single parent households.
Yep.
Well, I'm one of those. Okay. So just wanted to
Yep.
point that out.
Yeah.
But what I love so far, and this is why I invested, it is not just an app talking about mere cold money. And I say cold money because when money is taken out of all these other two contexts that you just spoke about, it is cold, right? It's not
Yep. Yep.
mission driven, it's not connected to a higher power. It's cold. So I loved that about the app, that it's not just, hey, we're
Yeah.
gonna just gonna do your finances and save money and you're gonna work and make money. So yes, please walk me through that. I'd love to hear it. Walk us through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So parents set up this system, and it really the goal is how do you get kids to be intrinsically motivated to create value,
Mm.
right? You can't just make them.
Mhm.
This is why allowance doesn't work. For
Right.
instance,
I agree.
okay, allowance is basically another form of socialism. It's
Mhm.
a mini form of socialism. If you give your kids the same amount of money every week just for existing,
Mhm.
it does not mimic the real world at all.
No, it's universal basic income, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it breeds entitlement.
Yes.
They think they deserve it,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
And they think that you're the person that should give it to them, and then the bank of mom or
Right.
dad is open forever,
Right.
So allowance has never worked. It's
Mhm.
100-year-old thinking, and even chores.
Mhm.
Like we got to be careful because most parents they say, "Well, I give my kids allowance,"
Mhm.
or they just do chores and they get their allowance.
Mhm.
Kids should never get paid the same amount of money every week.
Mm.
They should be earning and learning that like values unlocked as you earn,
Right.
right?
Right.
And create more value. And so then the worst one though, you got to be very careful. Some parents are like, well, don't worry, I don't do allowance. I just make my kids do all their chores like they're told.
Mm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, that can be good because you're teaching some work ethic, but you got to be very careful because that creates compliant children.
Mm.
It doesn't create a value creation kid.
Okay, so what's the solution then?
That's right. So the solution is this family economy
Mm.
system. And it's 3 E's:
Mhm.
expectations, expenses, and then extra pay gigs.
Mm.
So the first thing you do is you say, all right, we're going to set up the expectations in the home
Mhm.
of what we want our kids to be doing as their role in the family.
Mhm.
So there's no money attached to
Mhm.
this. It's just their role in the family. They're creating emotional value.
Right.
They're doing things just to be under our roof.
Mhm.
Like, you should never pay your kids to make their bed or clean their room or get ready
Yeah.
in the morning or do their homework,
I don't. No.
right? Or even dishes, trash. Like, it's like, these are just
Yeah.
this is your role,
Yes.
right? It's what we do as a part of our family.
Mhm.
Then, after you've set your expectations, and by the way, we do all of this in the app, and it's a printout for the fridge. It's so easy to manage.
Wow. Okay.
The second E is expenses.
Mhm.
Okay. This is where we learn this from the top families. And it was so brilliant. They're like, okay, what we did is starting at a younger age, maybe 5, 6 years old, and then little by little, by the time they're 16, 17, they're handling dozens of things.
Mm.
And you give them little expenses to be in charge of,
Mhm.
$10, $5, $50.
Mhm.
Then they have a motive now to earn, a
Mm.
motive to create value, to do more gigs, which is the third E, the extra pay.
Mhm.
And so expenses are things like, when you're young, maybe it's a toy,
Mhm.
or we're going to go to the movies and you're in charge of the popcorn,
Mhm.
or you're going to do ballet or
Mhm.
dance. Okay, you're in charge of the shoes,
Mm.
or you're in charge of the basketball.
Mhm.
We'll get everything else. You're in charge of one simple thing
Mhm.
for every extracurricular or sport that you're going to pay for.
Mhm.
Birthday present. This is my favorite one. Birthday presents for parties.
Mhm.
So my daughter Reagan, earlier this year, she went to a birthday party. She was 7 years old,
Mhm.
and she knew that to go to the party, she had to buy the present for Dawson,
Wow.
right? So she goes to Target with my wife. They get
Mhm.
the present. She wraps it. It's
Mhm.
$12. She knew that she had to make $17 because she's first going to give, share with the first couple dollars, and then she's going to save and invest with the
Ah.
next 20%.
Mhm.
And so she actually knew I had to have 12 left over in my spend account
Mm.
to buy the present to go.
Mhm.
So we show up at the party at it was the Ninja Gym party. Halfway through the party, Reagan walks up with the birthday boy,
Mhm.
and she's like, "Hey, can he open my present now? I want to see his face."
Aw.
And so they're sitting there in the middle of the gym, and he's opening her present. He's beaming from ear to ear, gives her a
Mhm.
big hug. All the other parents were like, "What is going on right now?"
Mhm.
And I was like, "Oh, Reagan's learning generosity."
Mhm.
Because all the other parents just bought the present, wrapped it. The kids chucked it on the
Yeah.
table, didn't even think about it. They didn't even open the other presents at the party, by the way, because it was like too fast.
Well, they usually take them home and look at them and then thank everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then mom and dad makes them write a card.
Yes.
But yeah, so all the other parents immediately downloaded the app because they're like, "Oh
Mm.
my gosh, that is the key. I want my kid to learn generosity,"
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
Because you can't give your kids stuff to then go give away. Like, kids don't learn to be generous if you just give them $10 to put in the offering plate,
Yes. Yes.
or you tell them what you gave as the parent.
Mhm.
That's not how they learn generosity. They learn it by earning first
Mhm.
and then actually sharing what they earn.
Right.
And so that's why the expenses are so important. It gives kids a motive to earn,
Mhm.
and it also saves the parents a lot of money that they can now use to pay the kids to do extra gigs.
Mhm.
And that's the third E, is extra pay gigs.
Okay, so what are some of those? I'm always trying to think of extra pay gigs. Like I thought, well, they could go clean the garage out and I'll give them this much. But I sort of
Yeah.
sometimes run out of extra pay gigs. So what are some extra pay gigs? Also for a 7-year-old, what are you giving her?
Yeah, so Reagan has her printout for the fridge.
Mhm.
She's got 10 gigs she can do at any time,
Okay.
and it's on top of the free stuff,
Sure.
right? We don't pay her for the free things. That's her
Mhm.
expectations. She
Mhm.
can't even do her gigs unless those
Are done. Yeah.
expectations are done.
Mm.
But we split up the gigs into what we call action gigs
Mhm.
and brain gigs.
Ooh.
So action gigs are using your hands and feet. So this would be like, you sweep the
Yes.
garage, go take care of something in the yard.
Mhm.
With us, we have our dog
Mhm.
that the kids help take care of, the pool,
Mm.
yard work,
Mhm.
cleaning a bathroom, organizing a
Right.
closet,
Right.
my bookshelf, they just alphabetized.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's prepping the lunches for all of the kids in the morning.
Mm.
A ton of things, sweeping or mopping or
Mhm.
cleaning up a bunch of extra stuff around
Mhm.
the house. There's a ton you can do.
Mhm.
And then you add in brain gigs.
Mm.
A brain gig is one of my favorite things here. This is a trick we got from a ton of these families. They said, we want to teach our kids to create value with their brain.
Mm.
Nobody does that.
They
But
don't.
but
No.
you and I, our brains are our business,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And why aren't we teaching that to our kids? And so
Mm,
a brain gig is something that they use their brain to do, to learn a skill
mhm,
or help the family.
mhm.
And so a couple of those would be a book, a podcast, an article, a YouTube, a TED Talk, something that you want them to learn.
Oh, okay.
And they read it, they watch it, they listen to it, and then they create like 2 paragraphs. Here's what I learned, and
Mhm,
here's what I'm going to do in my life differently
mhm.
now. And that
Wow.
could be a $5 brain gig.
Wow, I never thought of paying my kids to do that. I just asked them to do that anyway.
Well, it's fun if you can attach value to it,
Yeah, that's a great idea.
and homework is an expectation, right? Doing schoolwork is different. That's your role,
Exactly.
but these are extra things.
Mm,
Like, and one of my favorite things that I see is grandparents. They love the brain gigs for grandkids.
mm,
So like they're like, "Hey, PragerU, here's a 5-minute PragerU video. There's hundreds of them, and every
mhm,
single one you do, we'll give you $10
mhm,
to write us 2 paragraphs on what you learned, and we can have a quick FaceTime and talk about it."
mm.
They love it.
That's
It's like a
great.
great way to connect with the grandkids.
Yeah, that's a great idea for parents as well. Awesome.
Parents as well.
Yeah.
That's right. And the list is endless. So,
Mm,
we have tons of those that there's a lot of things you want your kids to learn that, you didn't even realize that they're not being taught in school.
right, right,
And so you start with some of those, and then it goes into here's some great other ones. So, what if you got your kids to cancel your extra subscriptions that you didn't know you were paying
right.
for? A 10-year-old can actually log in and cancel
Mhm,
subscriptions. They can call the Wi-Fi provider and cut the
mhm,
cost of the bill in half
mhm.
and learn the negotiation
Yeah,
skills. They can pull up your last couple months of credit card
yeah,
expenses and find out, whoa,
yeah,
we've got all these expenses that we didn't realize we were paying for,
right.
and have your kids cancel it, and they get paid a commission to do it.
Well, my kids are older now. I wish that this had existed before because my kids are now 14 and 17. But I have one of them like do my filing. I hate filing. I'm like, just here's my filing cabinet. Here it is. So, I mean, that obviously that's an extra job that I give,
Yeah.
right?
What about grocery runs?
Grocery runs, actually, we're very organized with grocery. I'm a very extremely productive person with no time wasting. Except, like,
Yep.
I'll have time where I don't call it time wasting where we're having entertainment. But I only leave the house once a week to do shopping. We do it all on Saturday. We don't run back and forth because that's not productive.
Yep.
So it's all done on Saturdays. But they just come with me, and that's the unpaid stuff. You're going to come and help me
Yep.
do the groceries for all of us. You're going to help me bring them
Yep.
home and put them away. I would never pay them to do that.
Well, one fun thing we saw,
Hmm.
one great tip is coupons.
Uh huh.
So teaching the kids how to find coupons
Oh.
and reduce the grocery bill. The
Hmm.
average family that did this gig that we started rolling out was about 26% saved on the grocery bill.
Oh.
So they learn how to like mailers that come in, or you
Hmm.
go to the store and you ask them, what are all the
Right.
products that are on discount?
Hmm.
50% off, 2 for 1,
Hmm.
20% off. And the kids, like, they're hunting for
Yes.
coupons.
Do you know what's funny? We used to do that at
Yeah.
my we I'm from a family where we lost all of our money overnight, like in wolf futures, and that was our life. My mother would go through all the coupons. We went from that to writing down every single because we had 10 children in our family. So you're reminding me
Wow.
of what we used to have to do to run our family, actually.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's
Interesting.
great because these, might take a little bit more work to start,
Mhm.
but it's a skill,
Mm.
right? It's a skill that you want your kids to get. And I think
Right.
that's kind of the point here is we've started to say this to families. It's like, hey, we don't do chores, we build skills.
I think that's a great idea. The thing is, though, we eat a very particular diet, like really like organic stuff. And I found that most of the coupons, they're for stuff that we would never want to buy. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of, in fact, when I walk into it, this is the issue. When I walk into a grocery store, I literally do a mental scan and I'm like, yeah, like 99% of the things in this grocery store I would never buy, like literally with
Yeah.
all the additives and everything. And it's actually
Yep.
interesting as I'm walking through, I'm like, yeah, we would never buy most of this stuff. So there's not a lot of coupons for like fruit and vegetables. Sometimes there is, but
Sometimes.
yeah, I guess
Sometimes.
we could just have them go in and say to the person, hey, please give me a list of all the coupons today. And we could go through and they could do an analysis. That's a good
Yeah.
idea. Yeah.
And it's a skill. Again, it's skills building.
Right. Even if you don't buy this stuff.
One of my favorite things we just did with Reagan and Sawyer is they helped plan the next family trip.
Oh, I love
So
that.
we were going on a trip. They saved us $1,000, by the way.
Wow.
But they get, 3 flights. What's the
Yes.
best deal? Right? Because we
Yes.
could do it
But it
or have
takes a
our
lot
EA
of
do it.
time. Yes.
Right.
Right.
But teaching them the skills is the goal. And
Right.
so they're figuring out, where are we going to eat? Are we going to
Mhm.
get an Uber? Are we going to rent a car? Are we going
Yes.
to Turo? They're getting the quotes on what these would
Your
cost.
7-year-old is doing this?
8. Yeah, no, she's 8 now.
That is astounding. Wow.
But I want them to be capable, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's the point, is like, how many of these skills are we just doing as parents? Because we're
Mhm.
like, this is our job to
Right,
provide
right.
everything and do everything for the kids.
Mhm.
Well, you want to set them up for success. And so everything that we do now, it's the first question is, well, our kids could probably do this. And it might take us some more time the first time to teach them, but from now on, they can do it on their own,
Right.
right? So one of the funniest things this last year, we get to the airport and we walk in with all our bags and we're going on a trip to Washington
Mhm.
here from Phoenix. And we like look at our 5-year-old Sawyer. We're like, all right, Sawyer, what do we do? He's like, I don't know. We're like, you're in charge, man. And he's like, okay, so what flight are we? We're like, I think we're taking Southwest. He's like,
Mhm.
okay. So we go up to the Southwest counter and he walks up to the lady and she's like, oh, hi. He goes, we have a flight. She's like, oh, can I see your ID? He goes, I don't have an ID.
I'm 5.
So he gets our ID, he gives it
Mhm.
to her, like give him the bags.
Mhm.
And then we're like, okay, now what? He's like, we got to get to our flight. What gate? Okay, what gate are we? So
Mhm.
he takes us through TSA. He
Wow.
finds the gate. He hands the person our tickets. We find
Mhm.
our seats. Like,
Mhm.
that's the fun part if you parent like thinking this way. It's like, well,
Right.
what could we have our kids be learning? And it might take some more time and training in the front end, but they're going to be ready for the real world, right? So that's kind of the point here. And then as they learn all these gigs and they start earning money, because you want them to be earning money, now they're going to learn how to earn, save, spend, share, invest.
Mhm.
Well, my favorite conversation with my kids lately is, hey, who else might want you to do that for them?
Mm.
So as they learn all these skills around the house, doing the brain gigs, doing the
Mhm.
yard stuff, whatever it would be, then they start to realize, oh yeah, the neighbors would want that too.
Right.
And now we're on to community gigs.
Around communities, and they could pay you money. So, is
That's
it
right.
too late if kids are in their teens to learn all this?
No way. No
Okay.
way. I mean, we have parents giving gigs to their 25-year-olds.
Right.
So the gigs that the older families are doing is they're like, okay, I want my kids to have an emergency plan. I
Right.
want them to have their insurance set up or their DMV set up or like
Mm.
understand their own like everything. So they're
Mhm.
giving their kids how to switch out filters in the AC unit, how to do all
Right.
these car things, how to
Right.
do all this travel prep, like all this. There's a ton of stuff that most young adults are like, I was never even thought about learning that. Now
Mm.
I got to figure it out as an adult. Well, the earlier you can do it, the more capable and confident they become. So that's really the thinking.
That is interesting because, as you're speaking, I realized my mother, I was good at fixing stuff. And, like, especially stuff that needed, like, an artistic, like, smushing together, you know what I mean? So I remember once our house, one of the bricks, like, got chipped off the corner. She goes, "Can you fix that?" I said, "Sure." So I got a brick and I pounded it to make a powder, and I mixed it with something to make it glue together, and I literally puttied it together, and it looked like the brick, and my mother was astounded. She goes, "How did you figure that out?" I said, "Well, I wanted it to look good. I realized I need it." So I was doing things like that, figuring stuff out. And
Yeah.
I'm very visual, so I wanted to make it look good. You know, she's like, I
Yeah.
could never have figured that out. So I'm realizing and just speaking, some of this just happened. My mother didn't do it intentionally. It just happened like, hey, fix this. Sure. But I think it's good to be intentional about the problem solving is what you're talking about, which is
Solve problems.
solve problems night and day. But I have
Yep.
had my kids from a very young age in restaurants take control. Like, my kid, she's very good at this. She was maybe 4, and I'd say, "Hey, I don't wanna do anything. I want you to manage this. So, do we need bread? Yes, we do." "Well," she goes, "Excuse me, sir," and she'd have a, "Excuse me, sir, can we please have some bread?" I go, "Okay, what else do
Yeah.
you need?" She goes, "I really like some butter." I said, "Well," you know? So then I say, "Well, the bill, you gotta pay the bill." So I would have them do that, and it made her feel very empowered, I noticed. She
Yes.
felt like,
That's it.
"I'm a big person," you know? Yeah.
That's it. You
Right,
want them to be empowered. And
right.
I think, and you're ahead of the curve on a lot of this, but I think one of the things we have to stop thinking of as parents is that our job as the parent
Mhm.
is to be caretakers for our kids the
Mm.
whole way through.
Mm.
And what I've found is the best families, they're like, no, I'm going to be a coach the
Right,
whole way through,
right,
not the caretaker. You have to move from caretaker to coach as early as possible in
right,
so many different areas.
right.
And when you do that with your children, you're actually raising them to be so much more capable and competent. And that's really how they go into the world stronger. And so
Mm.
it's for us, it's like, okay, we're not going to outsource the parenting. We're not going to
Mhm.
delegate and automate our whole lives and,
Mhm.
pay everybody else to do everything. We're going to help our kids learn it.
Right.
And in business, this is a difference in business. Like, I run a bunch of companies with a lot of people, and I've been trained the Dan Sullivan strategic coach mindset, which is
Right.
like outsource everything that's not your genius
Right.
and automate and delegate and eliminate. And so, we have people that help with cleaning, or we have people that
Mhm.
help with the yard, but we're trying to get our kids as much as possible to be doing those things.
Right, because, they might have a life where they have to do it themselves, and my whole thing is my kids must know how to cook. You know,
Yep.
you have to that's taking care of yourself. I think all men should learn how to cook as well. Remember that thing where
Absolutely.
guys wouldn't you should learn how to feed yourself and not have to get
Yes.
takeout because it's not healthy. But, it's
Yep.
interesting. I went to an event, this March, and we were given, like, the Ray-Ban Metas, okay? Now
Yeah.
to me, I don't wanna spend time figuring out technical stuff. So, I said to one of my colleagues, I said, "Oh, yeah, I'll have one of my kids figure that." She goes, "Can't you figure that out yourself?" I said, "Why should I when I can just pay one of my kids to do something she loves, which is taking it off my plate." She loves figuring out the when you buy new electronic stuff, I hate
Yep.
figuring that. I just send it to my kids. I go figure that out. And I do pay them. Sometimes I don't, but and they love
Yeah.
it. I'm like,
These
here's some
are,
money. You figure this out, and then now you're going to explain it to me. Okay.
yep.
So she had to learn, and wasn't that simple. I said, "Now, how do I do this?" And she goes, "Oh, mom." I said, "Well, you haven't figured it out yet, but that's pretty good." And I make them figure out the technical stuff because I don't like doing it.
Yeah.
But these people were a little shocked. "Can't you do it yourself?" I said, "I absolutely can do it myself, but why
Yeah.
spend that time when my kid loves doing that?"
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, the key here is giving kids a lens to look at the world and say, "How can I add value?"
Mm,
It's one of the greatest questions you can ever ask your kids at the end of the day is, "Who did you create value for today?"
right.
It's an amazing way to start having a different worldview.
I
Because if
agree.
you don't do this in the house, they're going to learn that it's all about me and what I deserve, and other people should
Mhm.
do things for me, and I'm just gonna
Right,
sit here and wait until the teacher tells me to do it or
right.
my parents tell me to do it. That's not how the
Mhm.
real world works. And so we really want to get our kids to be intrinsically motivated, right? So
Yes.
here's a good example. The other day, um, my Sawyer gets home from preschool,
Mhm,
and I couldn't find him for an hour. I get out of my
mhm,
office. I'm like, "Where's Sawyer?"
mhm.
Well, he's in the garage collapsing boxes of Girl Scout cookies for the
Aw,
last hour, like 40
wow.
boxes, because, giant boxes filled with little
Uh-huh.
boxes. He's collapsing them into, he's folding them into a giant stack and putting them out in the recycling bin. And I
Wow.
was like, "Buddy, what are you doing?" He's like, "It's a $3 gig, Dad. I saw it needed to be done and I just did it." And I was
Great.
like, "That," because we didn't have it on our list. He just made it
Well,
up.
he made it up. He's negotiating now.
And I was like, "Dude, that's a $5 gig, and we're gonna
Mhm.
celebrate you like crazy at dinner tonight." Like,
Amazing.
that's the kind of stuff that you want to start to see in your kids.
Right. Well, you've clearly built a very beautiful family instilling all this very young. Now, I'm fascinated in your background. Tell us a little bit because you have a very interesting family background that I remember you shared on
Yeah.
another meeting. Tell us a little bit about your background regarding money and family.
Yeah, so on a little bit of a sadder note, I this weekend,
Mhm.
we just got back yesterday from burying my grandpa, Papa Barney,
Aw, I'm sorry.
and it was sad, but he was 92 years old. He
Mm,
lived an unbelievable life. Talk about legacy. Oh my goodness.
mm,
I got to give the eulogy. It was beautiful. We had half the town was there.
mm.
And it was up on Whidbey Island north of Seattle, and it was not even standing room only. It was incredible. And
Aw.
his whole life, he was in the Korean War,
Mhm.
and they saved a bunch of orphans in the Korean
Wow.
War. I didn't even know about that.
Wow.
He built a bank. He was literally George Bailey from It's a Wonderful Life. He had
Mhm.
Whidbey Island Savings and Loan. They put tens of
Aw.
thousand of people in their homes. He built this from like a one-man shop to 65 branches all over the Northwest, $1 billion bank.
Mm,
He was Ronald Reagan's bank chair in charge of the U.S. League of Banks.
mhm,
He helped save the Naval Air Station in town. Like he was married to my grandma Joyce for like 65 years.
mhm,
Talk about legacy. My
mm,
goodness. And all of the kids and grandkids and even great grandkids were there. It was such a beautiful tribute to him.
mhm,
But one of the biggest things I saw was, when they exited the bank
mhm.
to Wells Fargo, they put, you know, countless millions and millions and millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars into charitable trusts
Mhm.
for ministries and widows and orphans and helping people all over the world.
Mhm.
And from a young age, they were like, "Hey, we're not going to give you a silver spoon. Like
Mhm.
you're going to learn to earn, to work, to create value."
Mhm.
I was shredding papers at 6 years old in the offices. My first business was 8 years old. They paid for. I was thankful they paid for half my college,
Mhm.
and the other half was on me.
Mhm.
Right. So they just trained us up. And one of the principles
Mhm.
that I took away from it was that our family believes in a heritage over an inheritance.
Mhm.
So it's more about what you leave in your kids than to them.
Mhm.
And man, did they leave a lot in us. The
Mm.
values, the faith, the mindsets, the skill
Mhm.
sets for success. And I
Mm.
think that's what creates a long-term legacy in a
Mhm.
house. And
Right.
so, yeah, I come from a great family that really loved each other, but they also trained us extremely well to be
Mm.
successful. I wouldn't be anywhere near who I am today if it
Now,
wasn't for the rearing up that they gave us.
that is a beautiful, tribute. Now, weren't you saying something that you from a wealthy family, but your parents didn't give you any money, or they just helped
Mm-mm.
you through college and that was it?
That was it. Yeah. They
Wow.
basically from a young age, they're like, look, we're gonna teach you to fish, right? If we just gave you all the stuff and the
Yes.
money, it would ruin you.
Uh-huh.
And that's what we've been studying while we do dinner table. We've been studying all these families, and they're like, yeah, we are not going to ruin our kids and grandkids with millions and millions of dollars.
Mm.
We're going to train them up and teach them how to create the value themselves because
Right.
that's how you pass the actual baton.
Right. And then they just leave all the money to foundations and charity?
Yeah, and one of the coolest things is our family gets to steward that together.
Oh,
So the
wow.
kids and grandkids, we get to help steward and give away the resources to things that need it all over the world. It's been an
That's
unbelievable like
amazing.
link to help our family stay connected. That's been
Mhm.
like the greatest gift.
It is.
And if you leave all your stuff and assets to your kids and grandkids, 90% of it's gone by the grandchildren. Okay?
Mm.
Statistically.
Right.
90% is gone. And the more you leave to them, the less they learn to create their own value.
Right. They don't
The
need
less
to.
that they risk, the less they
Right,
take
right.
opportunities, the less
Mhm.
they learn the skills.
Mhm.
And so you have to be really careful. It's not like they left us nothing. They
Right.
gave little gifts along the way. And,
Mhm.
when we got married and had our kids, and,
Mhm.
they were very generous and loving to us. But again, it wasn't coasting money.
It wasn't an endowment of millions of dollars, and here you are, and
No,
you're a trust fund baby.
that's right. It
Right.
wasn't that at all. There's a difference between an I love you gift
Yes.
and a coasting gift.
Yes.
So think of it this way, like you don't want to do nothing because if you
Right.
do nothing, then there's bitterness and there's like resentment.
Right, and you also when you do well, you naturally wanna help your kids in some way, like,
That's
I
right.
if it an emergency or help them buy their first house or
That's right. They gave us all the opportunities
Mm,
in the world, and they
right,
helped us along the way, and they were very kind
right.
and generous. But again, it was
Mhm.
never enough to coast. It was never
Right.
enough to be like, "Oh, we're just gonna sit back on our haunches and chill and let this thing just sit there and live
Yeah.
off it or let the interest pay us." It was
Mhm.
none of that. It
Mm,
was very much like, "Hey, we've been so blessed by God.
mm.
We
Yes.
want you to know it, but we also want you to understand that we're stewards of God's
Right,
stuff.
right,
He owns everything, and we're gonna be generous together."
right.
And so that's really what we were raised in, and all my cousins, like, they're all crushers. They're rock stars. The
Mm,
unbelievable families. We're all value creators.
mm.
It's just a beautiful way to do it. And,
I agree.
I see so many families where they think that their legacy has to be dying with as many millions of dollars as possible to pass on.
Mm.
And it's like, hey, careful, don't you're missing the point, right? Like
Yeah. Mm.
a heritage is a last name that means something.
Mhm.
And it's the values that you're instilling in your children
Right.
and the stories you tell and the experiences you have. And, that is really the key to long-term success inside of a family.
It's also the modeling. They're modeling what you're doing with your money. And,
That's
you're
right.
not just earning money to buy stuff. It's good to buy
That's right.
stuff, but that's not your reason.
Right.
The kids learn a lot.
I see this a lot now that we've had about 100 million views on our content this year. It's been
Wow,
crazy.
that's crazy. Yeah.
And I get texts every day from families that are really being helped by what we're saying. And
Mhm.
um, I really don't like it when I see all these other influencers out there. They're like, "Oh, I made my kids like a millionaire by the age of 12 because I
Oh,
bought them this duplex and got them this insurance and did all this stuff
yeah.
for them." Well, I'm
Mm.
like, "Well, wait a minute. So you're telling me that they're going to be 22 years old getting 20 grand a month to sit in their basement and play video games and eat Cheetos? Like, wait a second
Or
here.
get into bad stuff, right? Like
That's right.
drugs.
They're not gonna be
Yeah.
qualified themselves. So
Mhm.
maybe a better idea would be like, "Hey, why don't you buy a duplex with your 12-year-old and have
Yes,
them do everything?"
and have them manage it or yeah.
That's what you should do. "Hey, my 12-year-old started a million-dollar business, and I
Mhm,
helped them and coached them along the way, and we did it
mhm.
together." That is way more powerful than, "Hey, my
Absolutely.
kid's a millionaire because I did XYZ for him."
Right, right. Well, you're
Yeah,
sort of you I mean, the thing is I sort of think about this a lot. You want them to not feel so much struggle that they're demoralized. You
right.
want them to feel you're there in case something happens, as a backup. That's
Yeah,
good. But you don't
yeah,
then what's the point? I have money and now I'm just gonna do nothing with my life or I don't need
yeah,
to. That's why a lot of people will not leave trust funds to their kids. They just won't because they know
yeah,
that and it's not a mean thing. It's not like, well, I had to do that, so should you. I think that sort of meanness, I see what you're saying is, well, I had to do that, so should you. No, it's more like you need to learn skills and you need to learn how to be a critical thinker and to create for yourself and help. And sure, we're here if you because we have money. I'm here if you need me. If you're, you know, I'm certainly going to leave my kids with something. But
yeah,
I
yeah,
was talking to my insurance person and she goes, "Oh, so you don't want to fully endow your kids?" I said, "No, I don't want to fully endow my kids if that means leaving millions and millions, buying so much insurance that they're." I said, "How many millions of, insurance policy do I need for my kids? Really? Let's be realistic."
yeah. Well, and I would be careful about entitled adults because
Mm,
I meet a lot. So I'm on the phone, I'm on Zoom every week with a billionaire
mhm.
who would give it all up to fix a family issue, all of it.
Wow. Yeah.
And they've spent their whole life building and
Mhm.
working
Right.
at the expense of family.
Right.
And what they've come to realize is I thought I told myself I was doing this all for my family for
Right.
decades, and
Mhm.
my family grew up right before my eyes and I missed it. And
Terrible.
so if you
Yeah.
wanna have a true legacy, spend half as much money on your kids and twice as much time.
Yeah.
That's the key. And, there's no easy button.
Mhm.
There really isn't. And it's
Right.
just we gotta stop outsourcing our parenting. We wanna really raise our kids with the
Yeah.
skill sets to succeed, the
Right.
mindsets to succeed.
Mhm.
And I think if you can take more of the inheritance and spend it on heritage, you're
Yes.
gonna do a great job. So,
Yes.
experiences with your kids. One of
Right.
the greatest things I've ever seen were some of these families that we interview, they're like, "Yeah, so we take a 5 to 10 grand a year,
Mhm.
and every anniversary of our children, because now they're grown and married, they
Mhm.
have their own kids,
Mhm.
we take the grandkids for the week and we
Oh,
buy them an awesome anniversary trip and we say, go have a blast. We got the
yeah.
grandkids. And
Mhm.
man, they are like, that is the greatest investment we've ever made
Mhm.
because now our kids love us. They're
Mhm.
so thankful. We get to hang out with our grandkids. It's such a
Mhm.
blessing to them.
Mhm.
And yeah, we could have saved that money and died with another quarter million in the bank
Mhm.
for them to have, but who cares? Like, we want it. It's about the love and the experience.
Yes, and the memories and the experience and the building of the memories instead of just I've
And
opted many times in my life to earn less money to do what I wanna do in life, every time.
yeah.
And
Yep,
I don't
and
regret
that's
it.
it.
I don't regret it. I negotiated a Wall Street job for 3 days a week instead of 5. I said, "You can pay me proportionally because I wanna continue doing my creative work," and they were astounded. They said, "Okay,
Yeah,
just make sure that you perform." I said, "I will." I never regretted that. I didn't regret making the extra 40%. Never,
yeah,
not for a second, because I
yeah,
never would have had
amen.
those years, and I was so grateful that I chose that, you know,
Yeah,
negotiation, because now I thought, "Great, I would have made 40% more, but I wouldn't have had done all that creative work and felt like I was whole."
and make these and I would encourage anyone listening, make these decisions now,
Right.
because if you wait until you're a lot older. See, I deal with a lot of families that are older, and they have parents that have assets that are in their 70s,
Mm.
80s, and they're like, "Well, we'll just wait till mom or dad goes, and then we'll be able to use the assets to do what we want." Well,
Ah, no.
careful, because that creates entitled adults. Now you're just
Right,
waiting for someone to die
right.
to get the assets, and now
Mhm,
you're not gonna risk, take the opportunity. take the, do the thing now. You're just you're waiting. And then all of a sudden the parents live 20 years longer than you thought.
Yeah.
So then you're sitting around for 20 years hoping that you're going to get some stuff.
That's awful, actually. Right?
It's awful.
I know. I was thinking that. I was thinking, if I'm going to give my kids stuff, I'm going to give it to them while I'm youngish. Here's what you get.
That's right.
Might be a bit more. We don't know, but here it is. You don't have to wait now for me to. Why would you do that? My dad had very little, but before he died, he had been buying gold bullion, like gold coins from the Perth Mint, because we grew up there. And he said, look, it wasn't that much because God bless him, he would just go and buy a coin every now and then. And he said, I'm not going to wait till I'm dead. And he just split it all up a few years before he died. He said, here you go. There it is. Because he realized, why wait? Why wait till I'm going to die?
My grandpa built a $1 billion company and he died with his last check bouncing. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So generous. And they gave to the kids and grandkids. They were so loving. They gave while they lived. They gave away countless money and resources. Their name is on so many buildings back at the university I went to. And they gave while they lived. And they stewarded well. And it's like a job well done life. And that's what I want to live. So
that's awesome. Well, you've been very inspiring, Scott. Thank you for turning up. What's one thing, one philosophy, one mindset you want to leave everybody with before we finish up?
Well, I mean, I don't want to turn this too much to faith, but I after going to this funeral, I can't hold it back. If it doesn't point to Jesus, what's the point?
Okay.
I think we all need to be thinking about long-term legacy way more, and it's not about the stuff. If I'll leave everybody with this one question. If you could leave one thing to your kids and your grandkids out of these three things, what would it be? All your money and stuff, all of your experiences, or all of your knowledge? Usually when I ask that question, people go, wait a minute. Yeah, I want them to know my experiences and the knowledge and the wisdom that came from that. And if that's true to you, then I would really encourage you to spend the next several days thinking about, how do I pass on my experiences and wisdom way more than my assets? That's the focus.
Okay. God bless you. That's a very wonderful thought to end up with. Thanks again, Scott. This was amazing. I hope anybody listening loved this as much as I did. Please subscribe and share, and we'll see you on the next one. You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact.